We'll be bringing you everything you need to know to make informed financial decisions. That's Mansfield's Money Sense, every weekend only on CNBC Africa.
Welcome back. You're watching Open Exchange, and it's time to put the spotlight on dealing with the deficit, and a deficit of a different kind that we usually talked about here at the desk, and that of skills right here in South Africa. Brett Cousins of Regenesis Business School and Natalie Maroon, who's lead strategist at LRMG, join us at the desk this morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Natalie, let's perhaps start off with you because, you know, we talk about the unemployment situation in South Africa on a regular basis, and perhaps not so talked about is just what we are looking at in terms of the jobs pool. And it's quite staggering. There are currently 1 million jobs available in South Africa. So if that's the case, why are we sitting with the unemployment situation we sit with?
Well, Alicia, thank you very much for inviting us. And it's largely a function of the massive skills gap that we're sitting with. So government has 360,000 jobs, the private sector 640,000 jobs. And what we can't find today are skilled enough people to be able to place into these positions and to be able to respond to what these positions are demanding. And it places a real burden on the country, it places a burden on business, and it's a crisis that unless we get right, we're going to run into serious trouble as a country.
Well, let's bring in Brett here from Regenesis, and you have this interesting announcement, Brett, about a free degree. Now, I would think some of the gap, Natalie, is because people can't afford to go to university, some of it's because they're not qualified to, or there's no space. This, you claim, will be a game changer for the sector. How can you offer degrees for nothing?
Thank you. David, what we've realized is that you're correct. The affordability of filling that skills gap is very difficult. And Regenesis over the last 14 years has decided to put the entire qualification program suite open to the economy and all those that wish to absorb that material and absorb the skills that are required to then hopefully fill that skill set. I mean, if you look about what companies look for, one in two companies don't bring on employment because of lack of competency. Now, that means there's lack of skills. And we're saying, you know, the economy, the knowledge economy is now the free economy. There is knowledge out there. We are allowing the environment to consume that, to hopefully upskill themselves and then go into employment. And thereafter, hopefully the employer then starts the actual learning of those staff members.
Yeah. But how are you going to pay for this?
Exactly. You've got to question the sustainability of a business model like this.
Okay, we've utilized what we know as the freemium model. So we've put out into the public with our various partners the entire suite of a qualification. That is our study material, the e-books, the videos that we put together to allow the learners to consume. When they want to then be qualified, there is a fee that is then payable. And our hope is that the employer, if they seek that employment, will help fund that portion so that they can become qualified. However, if you think 70% of the population is employed by entrepreneurs and SMEs with 50 or less staff members, affordability to study is still a challenge. So we're saying, well, at least you can upskill yourself from an internal perspective and then apply that back into the workplace.
Of course, Natalie, affordability is just one of the impediments to actually tackling this skills deficit that you highlighted a little earlier. And what
the answer rests in our capacity to be creative around the problem. So I think if we look at the nature of the way we educate people and what we educate them about, I seriously question the validity of that in terms of the value it's going to add to me as an employer. And I'm saying business needs to couple with your academic institutions, with your schools even, and begin to put a creative plan in place that in the first instance gives people skills that are immediately translatable in the workplace. And it can't start at varsity. It's got to start at high school. We got to get people to be more proficient, and we got to get our youth to get their head around the concept that you got to start small. So the idea of getting you into a call center, working the call center environment, getting you, in a telesales environment, developing this huge host of skills that ultimately can be honed and taken in a direction at any given time. So I think We obsess with ideal job, and it must be high profile, and it must deliver into all of our aspirations, when in fact it's much more of a building block that we need.
Exactly.
And we need to create, as I say, from the outset, from people coming into high school, get them skilled so that they can make this meaningful contribution as they hit the ground.
Yeah. Brett, of course, what you're putting on the table is a stepping stone in the right direction. From conversations that you've had with business, just how open are they to actually, venturing down this partnership with, an endeavor like yours, so to speak, so that we don't only see things happening in theory, but in practice as well?
I'm not disagreeing with what Natalie says, and we look after that after the matric level, that once you've left matric, what you're finding is, A, the affordability to be able to get into a university, to be able to afford to pay for the studies. So what you're also looking at is businesses are now implementing internal learning strategies, but there's that risk factor of what is going to be value to actually then put your staff onto this training program.
Yeah.
And what's that risk of success thereafter? So by implementing what we've launched with the free business education, it actually becomes risk-free. You can put your entire organization onto the program, gain the relevant experience whilst learning, and when you've got your selected staff or candidates that can then go into the qualification route, you've already reduced the risk up front of that cost.
So they do pay, but they don't pay up front?
No payment up front. You only pay once you decide that you want to then actually take on the qualification.
Natalie, I just wanted to pick up one point there. You talk about companies hiring teams rather than individuals. This sounds interesting.
This is a new move, and an interesting new move, and it's built on the premise that teams are often more effective than individuals. And when you've formed a team unit and when you are congruent as a team unit, you're able to get that exponential performance that you wouldn't get out of necessarily or a newly formed team, because teams go through all these dynamics. So I predict that we will see increasingly a group of knowledge workers banded together. They will understand each other, harness their strengths as a team, and they will become they'll have serious capacity to trade in the market. And I
Certainly
think
something
it's
that we can identify with, in the type of industry we are. It's a team that puts a show like this together.
So we're for hire.
Don't say that on air. Thanks to you both for joining us in studio this morning. Of course, joining us, Natalie Maroon, who's lead strategist at LRMG. And of course, Brett, thank you for joining us. And Brett with Regenesis as well. On that note, that's where we leave it with you for this morning.
We've had a good week with the US election, the overhang or the hangover after that, and now interesting comments towards the end of the week of this country in that global context. Sense again that we're heading for some kind of crossroads.